We got Gators Breakdown here. We know we're business.
Gators Breakdown, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I'm your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SEC. And wouldn't you know it, on my birthday, getting a commitment. Another commitment right here for the Florida Gators. Kaiden Hall, safety from the state of Florida, committing to the Gators. We'll get into it right here on this episode of Gators Breakdown. Lots to get into, a little bit of house cleaning that we'll get into as well before we get into this episode. But keeping us busy, Gators getting a little more action on the recruiting trail. So, hey, I'm honestly, here we are. I mean, birthday present here is, hey, we got a commitment, but also my live stream's working. So I can have some comments with you guys, have a little conversation with you guys. Hopefully the stream's going good. There's been some technical issues there, but I think we're good. I think we're good. Casual Carolina Fishing hopping in early on. Thanks for your continued support. Saying go Gators and happy birthday, Dave. Thanks much. Thank you much. Had it all out there on social media. Everybody reaching out to me and all that. So big thanks. Trying to enjoy it. Going to be a busy day. After this, I'm recording about 6:30 on this Tuesday evening, and around 8 o'clock. I don't know when they'll release it, but I'll be on the Solid Verbal college football podcast. If you guys listen to that, I'm a big fan of those guys. Hopping on with them tonight. So check, make sure, go listen to it. Really, really good college football conversation in general. But they're going to have a Gator-centric episode coming up that I will be featured on. So the Solid Verbal, I'll be recording with those guys. They should be releasing it probably next week. But hey, talking about podcast, let's stick with our own right here. And let's make an announcement. I'll be recording later this week with, that's the wrong graphic there, but I'll fix that. Let me, right there, J. Michael Sturdivant, Gator transfer wide receiver, will be on Gators Breakdown. Be recording with him later on this week. Probably will put the episode out early for Gators Breakdown Plus members. It will be available for Gators Breakdown listeners and watchers. Not long, probably early next week. But if you want early access to that interview, you'll be able to get it on Gators Breakdown Plus. But J. Michael Sturdivant, Gators transfer wide receiver, but first time we get to hear from him. It'll be right here on Gators Breakdown. So looking forward to that. A lot of good angles to go with that one. There with J. Michael Sturdivant. So it should be a fun episode there with him. I'm really looking forward to that one. Getting to learn a lot more. Learn a lot more about the transfer wide receiver. His coming from UCLA, Cal before that. Playing with DJ Lagway, this wide receiver group. Looking forward to that one. And then, remember, let's go to it. Independent Gator Media Day. That's going to be hosted by me here at Gators Breakdown, Dave Waters, and Stadium and Gale, the guys there, and High Top Sports, right there in Gainesville, July 27th, 1 p.m. at First Magnitude Brewing Company. It is presented by my good buddy John Sachs, the Sachs Law Group, getting us ready to go right here on this Independent Gator Media Day. Tickets start at $25. Link is in the description. We're going to have a live media panel. We're going to have some special guests, Q&A session, meet and greet with us, hopefully we're trying to get some players in there as well. So trying to get the ball rolling on that, but should be a lot of fun. We hope to see a lot of you guys there. I think it'll be a fun time. If you're interested in sponsoring, reach out to the email address for Corey. Uncle Silk right there is on the screen, but you can reach out to me in Twitter DM, email gatorsbreakdown@gmail.com, however you want to do it. Independent Gator Media Day presented by the Sachs Law Group, July 27th. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's really going to be a lot of fun. I hope to see a lot of you there for sure. All right, so let's get to it. But before we do, hit that like button. Subscribe right here on Gators Breakdown. It really, really helps us out, of course. If you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting on? Hey, do it for my birthday. If you're not subscribed yet, make sure you are. Some of you might think you are, but you're not. But only thing I'm going to ask for you, or from you for my birthday, hit that like button. Subscribe. A lot of you do it anyway. But yeah. Plenty to get into. We got a commitment to talk about, of course. So let's get to it. Let's get to the commitment of Kaiden Hall. As I mentioned, the 4-star from the state of Florida. From Milton, Florida, comes in at 6'3", 200 pounds. I mean, that's a big safety. We'll get into that right here. But let's get into what the recruiting industry thinks about Kaiden Hall. 24/7 Sports Composite ranks him the 170th player nationally and the 14th safety in the class of 2026 to go along with the 24th highest prospect in the state of Florida. He's been rated, I went back and looked, he's been rated as high as the 108th best player in the class. Right now, 170th on the 24/7 Sports Composite. As far as the On3 industry rankings goes, Milton ranks 208th nationally and the 20th best safety in the country. He is the 30th best player in the state of Florida on the On3 industry rankings. The 4-star defender chose Florida over Alabama, Clemson, Florida State, and Oklahoma. He says Florida's been on him heavy since his sophomore season when he received an offer from the Gators. The decision came after his official visit to Gainesville this past weekend, where he got the feeling that he was at home. He didn't want to wait any longer. Says, quote, he is shutting it down. We'll see how that goes. We know how recruiting goes these days. But he did have his original commitment date that was originally set for July 5th. And this decision comes earlier than expected following that official visit to Florida. Seemed like coming into the official visits and coming into last weekend for him, Florida and Alabama were the schools gaining the most traction heading into all the visits. Now, on the Alabama side of things, they were only recruiting him to play linebacker. Now, if you go and kind of see what they thought about him committing to Florida, there was the thought that, with his body size, his body type, which we'll get into here more in just a second, but, when we're looking at, hey, where's the offers coming from? Who else could he have committed to? Alabama was only recruiting him as a linebacker. And playing safety is what Hall wants to do. Florida sold him on that vision. So there's a storyline about getting the commitment. I mean, Florida having these official visits pay off. 2 commitments off of that from this past weekend. Let's get into some film. Right there on Huddle. In 2024, the two-way player. He's a two-way player. That's what you're going to notice here in these highlights. Milton's a two-way player. It's a Milton squad that went winless. He got snaps at DB, was utilized as a run-first quarterback. He finished his junior season with 32 tackles. He had 3 tackles for loss in 7 games on defense per max preps. Added 28 carries for 161 yards. That was 5.8 yards per carry. And 2 touchdowns on offense to go along with 8 catches for 80 yards. Back in 2023, his sophomore campaign, he finished with 64 tackles. That was 8 tackles for loss and an interception on defense. He hauled in 23 passes for 414 yards and 2 touchdowns on offense. Good buddy Corey Bender from Gators Online, the On3 network, he offered this analysis of Hall. He goes, Hall does a nice job of making his presence felt in the run game. Quickly diagnoses plays quickly and then accelerates downhill with a purpose. He definitely doesn't shy away from contact. Hall was one of those players who was constantly flying around and trying to expand their numbers in the box score, and it shows on film. We definitely like his ability to get downhill and play near the line of scrimmage. That was the thing that jumped out to me. I mean, look, you got a guy that's that size. Look, we know some schools will recruit him as a linebacker. He should be able to come up and play near the line of scrimmage at that safety spot, especially at the high school level. Keeping it going with Corey, he goes, you have to be intrigued by Hall's physical makeup. Checks in at roughly 6'3", 200 pounds, and could eventually transition into more of a star or potentially an outside linebacker. We all know what a college strength and conditioning program can do with a prospect over 3 to 5 years. With Hall, he has a frame that definitely has room to expand. This is an imposing figure on the back end of a defense. Although Hall is a physical prospect, I'd like to see him season up his tackling technique, says Corey. He can do a better job of driving through defenders and wrapping up. There are times when he will arm tackle the ball carrier or throw them down. So getting stronger and playing with better pad level and force will improve his ability as a tackler. Remember though, Hall was not 100% healthy as a junior, so that could have played a role in him letting up at times. Lateral quickness and being more explosive when changing direction are areas of improvement as well. With Hall expected to get bigger and stronger, that could be why Alabama and some others envision him playing in the box long term. All in all, Kaiden Hall is an instinctive safety with good size who is always around the football. He does a decent job of dissecting what's in front of him and then finding his lane to the ball. I'm excited to see him at 100% health as a senior. It will be interesting to see where he plays down the road because there is some clear positional versatility. Andrew Ivins of 24/7 Sports also offered his analysis. Quote, large frame defender that looks destined for an overhang role at the next level with his range and pursuit prowess. Burst onto the recruiting scene as a sophomore, making plays on both sides of the ball, but had a good chunk of junior campaign derailed by an injury. Quick to trigger from a second level perch and will take sharp angles to the football. More of a build speed athlete at this stage, but can close gaps when convicted and has some impressive bounce, which allows him to play above the shoulder pads. Needs to keep honing in technique and improve play recognition as he can get caught overstepping and lose containment. Off-season camp evaluations have revealed that he's got a ways to go in man coverage, but in theory has the size to match larger pass catchers and is rather alert in zone. Overall, should be viewed as a potential multi-year contributor at the Power 4 level with all-conference upside that can provide alignment flexibility for defense. Must get healthy and is likely going to need some time in the weight room before he's ready to go. There you go. Offering couple looks there. One from On 3 and Corey Bender, 24/7 Sports, Andrew Ivins. And I mean, you like to see the safety that size. I love big time safeties. I love guys that can come down and make a play and make a tackle. The one I always go back to, if we're looking at it from a Florida angle, and guys who can do that, I'm a big Marcel Harris fan. Back in the day, I want guys like Keanu O'Neal, those type of guys that essentially could be a linebacker in some form or fashion, but can play in the box, not afraid to play in the box, not afraid to come up and lay the wood. That's when you see a guy that size, that's the type of play. That's the type of player I'm reminded of that I'd want in that form. Vinny Sunseri is now leading the safety group. He played a huge role in this recruitment. And with a relationship that dates back to Sunseri's previous job at Washington. Hall joins, of course, the safety position after a great Hall last cycle of Drake Stubbs, Lagonza Hayward, and now Florida staff typically likes to move their players around. Of course, we've seen that in the secondary. We've heard more about that in spring practice as well. And they see Kaiden Hall having the ability to play both free and strong safety positions. And that's pretty important. That's how Florida got his commitment early. Florida wants him to play the safety role. Wants him to play one of those safeties roles. And Kaiden Hall said after his official visit, Coach Sunseri sees me mainly starting with the free safety position. Then as we go on, Coach Ron Roberts says they can move me around. I'm all for it. It's great for me. So while, there's some talk of some schools wanting him as a linebacker, now maybe he just grows into that role. As kind of Corey was saying, we'll see. Things can change down the road, but it seems like the start is going to be a safety role. And it was a huge part in getting this commitment. As I mentioned earlier, Hall joins the recent commit of Janare Carr. Both were on their official visits this past weekend to give Florida now 4 commits in the class of 2026, along with quarterback Will Griffin and defensive lineman J.J. Perez. And now speaking of Perez, started coming out in the last day or so. Remember, he come out, said after he committed, he was shutting his recruitment down. Well, not so much. Perez will now visit the home state, Ohio State Buckeyes, after saying he was shutting his recruitment down. Of course, I never really bought that, as I said, when he was committed. I think you get caught up in the visit high, really excited, let a week or two fly by, and then there we go. Now Perez says he's going to visit Ohio State. Now, of course, being from Cleveland, plays for a pipeline school for Ohio State. I thought it would be tough not to make a visit eventually happen. Now, remember, go back to when he committed. Says he wants to play in the SEC. So now we'll have to see what wins out in the end. Definitely worth keeping an eye on now. Definitely shot up the rankings after he committed to Florida. True nose tackle. True body size Florida needs at the position. And remember now, if all the rivals who wanted to make fun of, there was no, this 3-star, there's no way Ohio State wants him. Florida only got him because Ohio State wasn't interested. Well, yeah, see, we know that wasn't the case. I mean, I went and did a whole lot of research on the Ohio State side of that. They were not happy. He committed to Florida. He was thought to be an eventual commit for Ohio State. Well, now he's going to be an eventual visitor. It's not this weekend, but next weekend. We'll see what comes of it. Now, Florida's going to have their work cut out for them. I mean, just like any recruit these days. I mean, even on your own roster, you have to keep recruiting. So, yeah, in this volatile world of high school recruiting, and especially for guys out of state, and in a program like Ohio State, going to have to stay on. Going to have to stay on. So, J.J. Perez visiting Ohio State coming up next weekend. Get some comments here. Robert M. Dave, how you doing, brother? I'm doing well. Keeping me busy right here on this Tuesday. DeAndre Gosha, hey, I'm glad you heard me there. Love, Dave, when you were here on our Birmingham station, 94.5, Mac and Cube. Yep, I joined Greg McElroy and Cole Kubelik on their radio show this morning. Thanks for those guys for having me on and trusting me to, talk Florida Gators. It's still, I have to pinch myself sometimes. Former players. Greg McElroy, national championship winning quarterback for Alabama. Cole Kubelik, who one of the best offensive linemen in Auburn history, and SEC network analyst, a game analyst, and asking me to come on their show and talk Florida Gators. I mean, never add to the birthday things today, but never did I see when I started Gators Breakdown. Having got, being on Shane Matthews' podcast here and there. Chris Doring trusted me enough to come here on Gators Breakdown and talk. And me being on SEC Network Radio and talking to Chris Doring and Peter Burns on their show. I still, every Tuesday morning, I'm on with Bill King. They're in Nashville, and a show that I grew up listening to. It's just, didn't know the avenues that this podcast would open up. And there we go. It's, I'm glad, DeAndre shouting it out right there, hearing me on there. And, Jocks is one of the biggest college football talk radio stations out there in that Birmingham market. So glad to be on with those guys. JC, thanks for hopping in once again. She says, go Gators, bring in the talent. And a lot of birthday stuff and what's up, everybody. Thanks for hopping in. Thanks for hopping in right here on this episode of Gators Breakdown. Breaking down another recruitment or another commitment here for the Gators. And as we talk about another, and we've done this when we get commits and we start looking forward a bit, but, Corey Bender tagged me on X and will certainly share who could be next for the Gators. As we start looking, we knew this time of year was going to cause for more commit, more visits, are going to get more commits. And coming up in the next, like I said, month or so, a lot of guys are making decisions. But who could be next for the Gators? Gators Online gives a list of 5. 4-star running back Carson Baker. Of course, he was on campus last weekend there for the Gators. Canceled official visits to Ohio State and Clemson. Has a trip to Florida State still on the calendar. has been sharing when guys commit to Florida, been sharing posts about Florida's commits. Started feeling good about this one last weekend after his visit. A former teammate, Tavares Dice, offensive lineman here for the Gators, he's on the roster. There's been picks for Baker to eventually pick Florida, so he could be next to commit. Jarayla McCoy, four-star defensive lineman out of Mississippi. Big relationship there with Gerald Chapman. Likes Florida. He's got a commitment date set for later this summer, but who knows? We've seen commitment dates change right now. Another defensive lineman, Bodney Cleveland. His name has been really ramped up lately. Said Florida was his number one school coming into the visit. He officially visited this past weekend. Florida's still his leader. Former Alabama commit. Texas and Georgia going to be in the mix. Florida's sitting in good shape right now. C.J. Hester, we've talked about him for a couple months now. Feels like a priority for new safety coach Darren Wilson. A lot of conversations there with Florida. And then Javari Lucas, three-star offensive tackle from Belglade, Florida. Florida number one in his recruitment. So there's a list of 5 names to be on the lookout for next to commit for the Gators. But the ball was rolling here for Gator recruiting, just as we kind of knew it would. John Valentine says, appreciate you, Dave. Always on top of things and as solid as they come. Happy birthday, sir. Thank you, John. Thank you, John. Coach Clay brings up, good question. I don't know if I fully know the answer right now. I think it's going to be on look, we said last cycle it could be on the smaller class, but then Florida went on that late season or late cycle run. But Coach Clay asked, are we signing in this class? I don't really know yet. I know the goal is to, I mentioned it last episode, sign 5 offensive linemen. So, that's going to eat into it a bit. I'm probably around the 18 number. You want to leave room for transfers. Now, of course, all depends on how many guys can leave, how many guys transfer. It's kind of fluid. We saw that last cycle. I think it's hard to put a number on it. You don't know what the transfer portal is going to look like, coming or going. And we know Florida, we got a lot of guys to come back for this year and this year's run for 2025. So you're going to lose some bodies. Do you sign a smaller class on purpose and then try to fit? The goal for this staff has been to build through the high school ranks more than the transfer portal. But as you got 4 offensive linemen who are going to leave. Sapp and Banks will be gone. There's 6 right off the bat that we know there are going to be departures. Devin Moore makes 7 off the top of my head. So J. Michael Sturdivant, that'll make 8. I'm just kind of go off the top of my head right now with guys. That's not counting some of the juniors who could have a great season and go on and test the NFL draft. So conservative side, probably generic answer, 18 to 20, but there's so much that goes into it now with the transfer portal. To me, it's always hard to get a gauge on what a number can be. Casual Carolina Fishing said, do we really hold scholars for transfers? I always thought the portal was for filling holes left by the guys that transfer out, not instead of recruiting. It depends on the position. With so many offensive linemen, do you leave a spot for maybe 2 offensive linemen to the transfer portal? I don't think it's, at least with this staff and the way they have told us, they're going to concentrate more on high school recruiting. I'm not so sure now. For Florida has had to go hit transfer portal for the wide receiver position the last couple of years. I do think even with the potential of this year, I think they had to go get J. Michael Sturdivant for this wide receiver group to reach its full potential. Next year, I don't think they have to. Now, what happens to a TJ Abrams and a Tank Hawkins if those guys kind of get passed up? What if it's the Aiden Mizell, the Trey Wilson, the Sturdivant, the Wilson, the Brown show, and those second-year receivers don't get the playing time or the stats they want? Then if they hit the transfer portal, by the time they make that decision, you may have already signed your high school class in that early signing period. So the calendar plays a lot into it as well. Say Florida's in the playoffs or Florida's making a run, you're not really going to know, for the most part, full tilt who's going to hit the transfer portal because you're still playing football games. And then Casual Carolina Fishing goes on to say, like, if we want older, more experienced guys at certain positions, is that why? Certainly. I think we've seen that at the safety spot or DBs for Florida. You go back to last class and you had, Asa Turner, DJ Douglas, Triquez Bridges. All those guys were bringing a ton of experience with them. This year with Caraway from Southern Miss, a lot of experience with them. Yeah, to me, it's hard. It's hard to go get young guys in the portal, especially with how Florida's recruited. I think you lean on more of your young guys. So yeah, you're looking for more experienced players. Now, everybody wants more experienced players, especially in the trenches. If you can get an experienced defensive lineman, offensive lineman. But we've seen Florida do it at receiver. We've seen Florida do it in the secondary. I mean, to me, that's probably the overall thought is get you experience, especially for the way Florida's recruiting. We like the young talent on this roster. So to me, it's really filling it in with experienced guys that can help you take the next step, not guys you got to come in and develop. I mean, there's been some of those, Jason Zandamela, Kamani McLean, Pup Howard. Those guys early in their careers had transferred after one season or no seasons for Grimsley and Zandamela. But for the most part, it's been experienced guys that can help Florida right away. B-Step, what do you think our biggest position of need in this class as of now? Number-wise, offensive lineman, because the plan is to bring in 5 if Florida can. So that's it because of what you lose this year as well. That's a good one. I'll go trenches both. Offensive line and defensive line. That's the biggest positions of need for me. Biggest positions of need. Receiver, you hit really hard last cycle and got some really, really good guys. You got Harrison Bailey already wrapped up a quarterback. Running back, you got a lot of depth already on the team. Offensive lineman, you got to replace 4 guys with Slaughter, Barber, Waits, and Damian George. So you need some numbers there. And then for me, it's in the middle of that defensive line and edge rushers. So yeah, I'm up front. I'm up front with those. All righty. Thanks, guys, for hopping in. Kaiden Hall, committing to the Gators. Talking about it right here on Gators Breakdown. Good stuff. Good stuff. Glad you hopped in. I know it was a little short notice. But you get a commit. That's kind of what happens, huh? One more time. Reminder. Independent Gator Media Day, July 27th. Link is in the description. It's presented by the Sachs Law Group right there. Me from Gators Breakdown, High Top Sports, Stadium and Gale. Tickets start at $25. Link is in the description. One more time. Hit that like button. Subscribe right here on Gators Breakdown if you haven't done so yet. That'll do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown. I'm your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SEC. Guys and girls out there, thank you for joining me on this episode of Gators Breakdown.